Welcome back to the DT Podcast. I'm Alex Furchess. This episode is the third in a series of four featuring Sander Kamphuis, CEO of Moovd, creator of WeMind AI-optimized EMDR software. Now, in this episode, after a few minutes of discussion of youth, technology, new trainees, we get into the 500-pound gorilla in the room, which is what happens when large language models replace the therapist. So, Sander and his company have no plans to do this, but the fact is the cat's out of the bag. Moovd is so successful that if he doesn't do it, someone else will. So we speak about the implications of this, implications of regulation. It was a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we did.
Because one thing correlated to what you were mentioning in the beginning, like there's a gap between new generation and the experienced trainer, is that people that are being trained nowadays, mostly, not all, but mostly don't know what's possible in terms of technology. So it's a shame that if you're coming fresh out of EMDR training, that you're not fully equipped with everything that's out there. So I think there should be more partnering between training organizations and tech or knowledge things that can help a clinician get more and more out of a session. So especially if it will help them take away the doubt they have that's keeping them from doing EMDR in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's tools that doing that, and that would be, in my opinion, make total sense. So
Yeah.
especially like in my example, if you're coming out of the university in your educational system about, let's say you're doing a study on a tech study nowadays, you think that you're well educated, but you're 5 years ahead, 5 years, let's say you're just fresh out of university. You think that you've learned it all, but the big tech companies are 5 years ahead of you. That's basically it. So they're much further
Mm-hmm.
than you are. It's a shame that if you're coming out of your EMDR training, that you're prepared, you're good to go, that there's more out there that you're not even aware of. And I think that's also a gap that we, or maybe you as like one of the younger facilitators, could bridge in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. And a really odd example of that from my personal experience that was kind of surprising was I use a like I said, this program is not monetized, so I don't want to use like a company name or something, but there's a company that makes light bars, right? And early on, I had a light bar. Very early on, I recommend it to consultees because then you can take notes and you can more engage your own working memory.
Yeah,
It's kind of the same concept, right?
true,
You learn
true.
more because something is doing the easy stuff for you,
It's
So
helping you, and it's great. Yeah.
like this is working the clinician's working memory to a degree. Not mine
Yeah.
anymore. It's automatic. But but in any case, I just saw that there were some issues with this light bar that were kind of clunky, right? It's just bad interface or whatever. So I called them
Hmm.
up. I just called them up. I'm just a kid, right? I'm not that far out of graduate school. I just called them up. And they actually had a long conversation with me about how they could improve their interface and make it so I was like, well, you should put the display on the back because the
Mm.
clinician isn't always sitting to the side of the light bar. Just it's little simple things like this, or stop using an infrared remote control. Like this is not
Hmm.
1990s television, right? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, and sure enough, my remote broke and I had to get another one. But now they actually incorporated some of those ideas
That's cool.
that I had and sent me some cool equipment. Like that wasn't because I was like especially insightful or super smart. And you know, that's just nobody, just a kid in small town USA. But the fact was, no one else called.
Exactly.
No one
Exactly.
else, no one else called. I didn't know that no one else was speaking to them,
Hmm.
and I think that reflects a lot of what you're saying. It's like, uh, in in a sense, like in the same way. Okay, so I did some research on online EMDR before COVID because I saw it
Okay.
coming.
Yeah.
It wasn't publishable because during COVID, everybody just started doing EMDR online with very little, well, no research. Thankfully, it proved safe. But I was looking at it beforehand, and there's no need to talk about the results that I got. Obviously, it worked okay. Um, but no one else thought to do this, and no one else seemed to see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
And quite honestly, at my age now, I'm 42. I There's a lot of things that I wouldn't see coming, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
So like this program's intended for young clinicians and old clinicians. So just like any young clinician listening, like share your ideas, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Sander,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I mean, it'd be pretty cool if you received emails now and then from young clinicians giving feedback. Do you? Does anyone?
To be honest, not so much from younger clinicians because they get what we're doing and they don't have questions. I would say, but like the introduction we have with a lot of EMDR trainers or consultants that help us improve the product, and most of them
Mhm,
want. So they're trying it and think, hey, I have this idea, and mostly you get the same ideas
mhm,
because it's all knowledge based. Like what can we do? What does EMDR? What does other solutions have?
mhm,
But it gets really interesting, as you said, when you would combine an AI expert with a EMDR expert and a algorithm expert, and what ideas come out of it. So
mhm,
it's actually what we just talked about, the idea of making switching it around, making an AI that's doing training
mhm,
has now come up. Like we have talked about it. I have thought about it a few times, but it was like it will not be a breakthrough. But you're a facilitator and you're doing the trainings and it will make sense for you. We don't have EMDR facilitators in our team. We have EMDR clinicians, we have
mhm,
researchers, PhD, so that's the smart people, but on the algorithm side, but not the people actually doing the training. And that's where EMDR educating begins. So I think it's a fascinating discussion, and I would love to continue that also after this podcast. I think there's really valuable ideas that can make life of clinicians and also with clients improve.
yeah, because that first weekend training, the institute does 2 weekends and then required consultation in
Hmm.
between and after. But that first weekend is kind of make or break,
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if somebody doesn't, I tell them like go out and use EMDR next week. Like you may not get into reprocessing, get your consultant to, and by the way, get a consultant like immediately, me or whoever, I don't care, and go boldly into the future because I find if they don't have the confidence to start using that immediately, they just won't.
Interesting. Correlated to this, exactly the same is because they're just afraid of it, afraid of introducing EMDR in their
Mhm,
practice. You have to take the first step. It's the same thing with technology. We get a lot of people that like uh, I think this is interesting, but it's new and I don't like change. So I will either do it next week, and if I do it one time, I enjoy it and I will continue. If I don't do it the week after or in the second week, I forget about it and I don't do it.
mhm,
People don't like change. It's the same with all the fear of AI. At first, you're thinking, "What is this? This is dangerous." Until you start researching it, and there
mhm,
are some dangers in it. We have to take note of that. But it's like the fear or changing is hard.
mhm.
So I think change is in tech is the same as changing switching to EMDR, and it's a fascinating process that in the end is up to the clinician him or herself.
So, maybe some of those people might be convinced if you also had an AI training program that threw in false information now and then, errors, just to see
Hmm.
if the clinician maybe more slightly advanced in skill. Maybe, maybe you could vary the difficulty of detecting the
Hmm.
errors, right? Like the AI um, tells you that the working memory is something that it's not. Like, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very something that should be very obvious to a beginner who's educated in using WeMind. Perhaps
Mm-hmm.
if if you showed that sort of proof that a new clinician is being encouraged to question and dialogue with the AI, like a professor writing a book with the help of ChatGPT as his AI grad student. Maybe that would dispel some of the notion that, okay, the therapist just is going back and becoming less important, and the
Mm-hmm.
AI. So I don't know, but that brings me to like big question here. Big
Mm-hmm.
question. So there's what Brian Romilly fears, AI as a replacement for professionals rather than augmentation that helps the professional or trainee become better, right? Better at a faster rate, a better Einstein, right? Like not Einstein doing, but there's a difference between Einstein helping you with your homework and Einstein doing your homework for you.
Yeah,
And
true.
let me tell you, the market is there because the course that kicked my butt in college that I lost the most sleep on, like I was a chemistry minor and I loved physics and advanced calculus and all these things, but languages, it frightens me.
Mm-hmm.
Spanish, first year Spanish, I am lucky to have passed that course.
Okay.
But the reason why it took up so much of my working memory is because, unlike the other kids in the class, I didn't use the very poor at the time free translation programs online to do my essays. I would
Mm-hmm.
spend 7 hours writing an essay in Spanish, and they would just write an essay in English and plug it in. What I'm saying by
Yeah,
that is
exactly.
the market for being lazy is there. Like that is like the
True.
primary market for technology is like being lazy,
Mm-hmm.
arguably. Like it shouldn't be, but I'm lazy with a lot of things. So AI is a replacement. Viewers see the headline AI used in EMDR, and they're a lot of times falsely assuming that therapist has been replaced, like you're
Yeah.
saying, like this is Skynet and Terminators. But the fact is, someone is going to do that in the next 5 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
probably sooner. What's what is your position on that, and why? And what is your company's role going to be when that happens, when the therapist is replaced with AI for doing EMDR by certain companies?
Yeah, I think our standpoint is that AI will never, let's say in the near future, will not replace a therapist. We don't want to have a role in that because we think the relationship between a therapist and a client is really important. So replacing a therapist is out of out of the world, we would say. But replacing an old school therapist with a therapist that can do it better, faster, and cheaper,
Mhm.
uh, that is lazy. But lazy, in my mind, would mean doing it much more efficient. Can
Mhm.
be the thing. The case to be made here, I would say, in the Netherlands, for good care of complex clients, you can be on a wait list for 9 months.
Wow.
Because a therapist can only do 6 sessions a day or eight. What if an AI can bridge the gap and make sessions from 60 minutes to 30 minutes? That means a therapist can do in 8 hours, two times more. I think that will be happening. I think that we will see innovations that will um, make treatment more efficient, take over parts of it. Maybe we could prepare clients better with AI. We could do the aftercare better with AI. What we would foresee is that, and I think that will be in the near future, that there could be more self-guided types of solutions for EMDR. Not for all clients, but for the more simple clients, let's say single phobia, fear of heights.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
it could be one
Right, right.
session. It's a shame, in our opinion, that for something so simple, if the assessment is done right, it would consume 2 hours of a EMDR clinician instead of that clinician focusing on one of the more complex clients. So I totally agree with the professor saying AI will not replace you. Not at all. We don't see anything in that, but it will help you get more out of it.
More to
And
come in the second half of this conversation. Check out WeMind along with research and a 2-week free trial at www.moovd.nl/en. That's www.moovd.nl/en. If you're enjoying this conversation and you're a clinician treating complex trauma or a student learning how, email dissociativetable@gmail.com to join the discussion on the Clinicians Only discussion board.
and especially with the younger generation, clients, I would say, they're more and more on their own. So I'm not calling a doctor really much. I will Google it. I will search for solutions. I will do it myself. I will do it in my own time. And if needed, I will call a therapist.
Mhm.
But I want to do it in my own time. So the dependency of clients also changed. So a client, I would rather do fewer sessions, do it online, do it based on AI if data is right, if it's evidence based. So I think it's not only about what therapist wants in this case, it's also about what the clients wants in how they want to deliver their care. If and you envisioned it a bit with the Terminator taking over, but let's say in this phone is an EMDR therapist, right?
Right.
If it's safe and it's researched, I would use it. I'm 26 years old. I would use it. And I think there will be more and more people. And there's a case to be made. There's good, there's bad. Uh, and in the end, it boils down to, is it safe? Is the research behind it? And how does it really work? But it will not replace therapists, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think one issue with one thing I would take issue with in that statement is like something that has nothing to do with you making the statement, which is the word research. The research on complex trauma is limited to a very small world, right? Complex childhood traumatization currently, um, most people are working with parts of self directly or with some sort of psychodynamic model. That is using 8-day inpatient treatment and treating those cases, and his outcome studies are good. However, the it's it's nonetheless difficult to research complex trauma because of this. There's so many myths about repressed memories. That is just such an unfortunate misconception that has destroyed even the idea of using, of course, you're familiar with the float back in EMDR. Well, we're finding a memory, but I don't remember anything. It's like, well, of course you do. If you didn't, it wouldn't be affecting you and you wouldn't be in my
Mm-hmm.
office. Not that you're saying that to a client. Perhaps
Mm-hmm.
you would in other countries, but nonetheless, Americans are not that direct. And it's difficult to research that. And as a result, I would be concerned that the AI EMDR therapist in your phone would be informed by research that is ignorant, perhaps willfully ignorant, of the sometimes very strange nature of the world of the complex trauma client that they are not willing to share. And as a result, might miss something
Mm-hmm.
and only seem to produce a good outcome, right? My
Mm-hmm.
client, my
Mm-hmm.
clients, my clients. Okay, so victims of complex childhood traumatization. This is Vanderhart et al.
Mm-hmm.
Han
Mm-hmm.
itself, classic, cites all sorts of research. And one of the things he cites is that victims of chronic childhood traumatization have the 11 first-rank symptoms, Schneiderrian symptoms of schizophrenia, more often and worse than schizophrenics.
Okay.
This is not the type of thing that people want to talk about in brief therapy. this is not the type of thing people want to talk about with researchers. It may take a year with a therapist before a client mentions these frightening things. Even something like a simple, a more commonly known dissociative symptom like depersonalization, where you're walking around seeing yourself now and then, or when something stressful happens. Um, but if the research doesn't take those things into account, it's going to be very difficult for the therapist on your phone to find the target memory.
Mhm.
Um,
But
I
I would say that part is so important, and also that's why we don't do anything in that. Let's assume there can be an AI therapist in your phone.
Mhm,
I think that should be distributed by the professional to clients that are okay and stable enough to do it. Because there are so many indicators that
mhm,
need to be taken in account. But it's, as you said, if you follow the AI development now, it's going so fast
yeah.
that there will be a time that the system can do it better. It just is like all, not only this, but all professions will be changed in AI. Like video photographers are filming something, AI can make it up in 30 seconds what you're gonna film. You're gonna film a car. Okay, let's generate it, and you cannot see the difference. So
Mhm.
it's not only in this profession, but you're still talking with clients. So I would say something powerful like that should be available to people that want to. So you could also differentiate to a client that wants to go to a doctor and some client that wants to do it on their own. And there can be a different approach, different type of clients. And it's an interesting future where, as you said, that development will take place somewhere.
Mhm.
But there probably and there should be some regulatory aspects in it, like how do you do it, when do you do it, and maybe the institute can and will be involved in that. I think that would be great. I think that's also needed, but we'll see.
Well, I think the counter argument to what I'm saying um, is there's all sorts of people out there doing terrible EMDR already. Like basically, they're like really bad. They're someone who's going to use AI unethically is going to probably use EMDR unethically anyway without AI. So
True.
if you it's it's kind of it's a difficult sort of thing, but you mentioning that like an organization with weight like EMDRIA, if they come out with a position that this program is approved, EMDRIA approved, this program is not, like this chatbot based EMDR for panic disorders is approved. This is not. By the way, there's stuff out there already for that. It's just crap. It's
Yeah.
not real AI. So like
No,
watch out.
like the self app
Yeah, that
EMDR things you mean. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with the
yeah.
phone thing. But let's assume something like that and it works and it works
Mhm.
better than the rest. That would be
Yeah.
something.
So maybe a good suggestion would be okay, so therapists are EMDRIA approved, right? Approved consultants, you have to be an approved consultant to be a facilitator with the institute.
Hmm.
A consultant is someone who does those hours of consultation, one-on-one or in a group after the training, right? So the EMDRIA is making sure that training organizations are approved, that the trainees are approved, especially that the certified EMDR practitioners, and even more especially that the approved consultants are approved, right? Perhaps they need to approve this or that program. Um, and that's the same. I mean, a human can do a lot of damage. Like you've got Skynet and Terminators and all that, but you also have like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Chairman Mao,
Hmm.
and all that. Like I'm,
I think,
you know,
yeah, no, we're on the same page. I think there needs to be a regulatory side. What we already see with, let's say, the big platforms like Facebook and all the data issues that were monitored. Like, where does data go? I think it's the same here. There should be some organization, probably Andrea,
Mhm.
researching this. The same thing is that we're a CE marked device. So our platform is a medical device.
Hmm.
You have to go to, for example, a notified body if you have a class 2 device, or a class 1 device. You have to submit all of your documents. How have you built it? Where's data stored? That's like, it's a medical device. It needs to be safe. I think MDR should involve, in my opinion, a bit more on what apps are out there. So broader than AI, but what apps are out there, and are they approved to use by a EMDR consultant or an EMDR clinician? And there should be really strict um, rules for that. Like, what does it do? And now it's only like who can use it, but what you use, you can do whatever you want. Um, it will make sense, in my opinion, and we already tried to get in contact with the MDR to get tools as well approved. So I like that idea.
Mhm. Thanks for listening. I thought that was an excellent point that Sander was making at the end, again, about the relationship with medical technology and some similar regulation through CE branding of things like WeMind. However, I think that that is going to be more difficult in some countries than others. For instance, in the Netherlands, the use of EMDR is very tightly controlled. As a result, there are very few EMDR therapists and a very long waiting list to be treated with EMDR. In America, you kind of have the opposite problem, and you have some people giving EMDR a very bad name. Um, which is better, which is worse, that's up in the air. But nonetheless, there just isn't the ability to regulate things like WeMind in the US and in some other countries, just because EMDR already isn't regulated. So um, I hope you enjoyed this. As always, our intro and outro music is provided by the band Cracked Machine, who's very generously donated the rights to their music in support of increased global access to excellent trauma therapy. And we'll see you for the next excellent episode